We've seen 6 national championship rounds that covered more than 3,400 grueling off-road kilometers in 4 different provinces and even 2 different countries across southern Africa. And now it will all come down to this. Scores will be settled and new champions will be crowned when the 2023 South African Rally Raid Championship draws to a close at the end of an action-packed and drama-filled season. This is round 7 of the South African Rally Raid Championship, the Waterberg 400, and all the action is once again brought to you by Ford, Toyota and Pirelli. Welcome to the Waterberg 400. The small hamlet of Kuduskorp, just a few miles short of Tabazimbi in the Limpopo province, and once again on the banks of the Crocodile River, would play host to the final battle of the 2023 season. The race was based at the Kuduskorp Primary School, with the entire local farming community opening their doors and welcoming the SARRC with open arms. The facilities created especially for the race and crews were top-notch, and the otherwise quiet community was about to get an injection of adrenaline, with the Pirelli qualifying race scheduled to kick off at lunchtime on the Friday of the event. The race returned to a more traditional format with the 58-kilometer qualifying race and 2 loops of around 170 kilometers each scheduled for this Saturday, making up the inaugural Waterberg 400. The route and conditions were typical for this area that consists of prime game farms and commercial farming. As such, some sections of the route were behind game fences on private farms, with others in between large irrigation points on commercial farms on either side of the Crocodile River. So that was the lay of the land. So let's waste no further time and get to the action.
Faster.
As we've done for the majority of the 2023 season, let's tick them off class by class. And we'll start with the former premier class of Rally Raid Racing, Class T1. Throughout 2023, this class saw a bitter 2-way battle between defending champions Eben Besson and Leander Pienaar and challengers Johan de Bruin and Gerard Schutte. With just one final race to go, it was Advantage Besson who held a slender 11-point lead at the top of the standings. But both men were very much aware that anything is possible in the unpredictable sport of racing. This is what they had to say before the start of the race.
So it's all about the championship. We need to consolidate. We obviously would like to win, but we need to play it smart.
He needs to consolidate. He's been lucky. I think the fact that we got those penalties in Paris really opened it up for him a little bit. If it wasn't for that, we would have been 4 points difference.
All eyes might have been focused on the scrap between Besson and de Bruin, but 4 more crews in Class T1 were quite eager to rain on the parade, including the likes of the Heinleins and Philip Botha and Rudolf Janse van Vuren, both in redline VK56s. The Renault Dust of stalwart Johan van Staden and his son Sean, and the relentless German Jürgen Schroeder and Ryan Bland. Schroeder is an old friend of South Africa, but this visit to the Limpopo Bushveld only yielded a 5th place finish in the qualifying race. His Nissan Navara was just 28 seconds slower than the next pairing up the road, the father and son combo of Johan and Sean van Staden, who are also looking to end their season on a high. A further 26 seconds separated the van Stadens from a qualifying race podium position. The men who occupied that podium for now were none other than Philip Botha and Rudolf Janse van Vuren in their redline VK56. This surely then left us with the fight not only for qualifying honours, but also for the entire championship. But sadly, this fight between Besson and de Bruin was cut short before it could start. De Bruin and Schutte hit one of the many trees very early on, which overturned the redline Revo. Both occupants were unharmed, but the championship fight was pretty much over. With de Bruin on the sidelines, Gerard and Rudy Heinlein grabbed the opportunity with both hands to complete the qualifying race in a fine 2nd position in class. But the class of the Class T1 field was once again Eben Besson and Leander Pienaar, who did not put a foot wrong in the Team Hilux Rally Raid Hilux to claim pole position by a full minute and 7 seconds. There it is, confirmation of Besson's early advantage over Gerard Heinlein, with Botha rounding out the top 3.
Yeah, you know, it was a tough prologue. I must say that first 12 k's or 11 k's in the bush was tight like hell.
It was going to be a tough, long and warm weekend in the African bush, with the sun rising early on race day, causing the mercury to quickly rise into the high numbers. It got even hotter inside the race cars, with crews having to negotiate a very tight and narrow mountain section before getting time to catch a breath on the more open farmlands later in the loop. Unfortunately for the German Jürgen Schroeder, his luck ran out with a few issues that cost him valuable time. He was, however, still classified in 6th. The Heinleins showed great promise after qualifying, but they too saw the ugly side of Lady Luck when they were slapped with a 15-minute penalty that dropped them from a potential podium place finish all the way down to 5th. Redlined Motorsports' Philip Buerta and Roelof Janse van Vuuren were steady as ever, no doubt enjoying their time in the African bush, on their way to a well-deserved 4th place finish from behind the wheel of the VK56. Meanwhile, title hopefuls De Bruyn and Skitter were back in action following the roll from the day before. The Redline Revo was back on its wheels and eating up the kilometers, but the time penalty received for failing to finish the qualifying race the day before meant that 3rd was realistically as high as they could go, which is exactly where they ended the final race of the season, a valiant effort by the Pretoria businessmen. And one has to give credit where it's due, and one such place is in the cockpit of the Renault Duster of Johan van Staden and his son Sean. The stalwart did what he does best and brought the Duster safely home for yet another high-point scoring finish. 2nd place was a great way for the veteran to end yet another season. But not as great as the position claimed by Eden Besson and Leander Papies Pienaar. Not only did Besson storm off into the distance to claim a dominant victory in the Waterberg, but with it he succeeded to successfully defend the title that he also won in 2022. A near faultless performance by the man from Komati Poort. And there it is, a comfortable winning margin to go with the 2023 title for Eden Besson and Leander Pienaar. Van Staden claimed 2nd ahead of De Bruyn, who put up a good fight till the bitter end. But in the end, there can only be one winner, and for 2023 it was once again Eden Besson.
We had to, manage it all. I think the last loop we took it a bit slowly, but to make sure we get here. But it was an awesome race, and I think there was an awesome year as well.
On to Class T, where Pretoria businessmen Skalk Burger and Navi Henk Janse van Vuuren were the only ones to fly the flag. Burger pretty much had the title all but wrapped up, so the King Price Extreme driver was here to have fun and enjoy his time behind the wheel, which was exactly what he did. The big man had a clean qualifying run on the Friday and lived by his motto of not getting out of the car to attend to problems such as punctures. The route in the Waterberg was a tough one, but Burger managed to achieve his goals and reached the end after a tough day's racing in a very credible 12th place overall.
Yes, it was tough. You could see everybody took strain, and you could see the car standing next to the road and concentration going, wheels off, punches. So it's tough.
Next up, the open wheel warriors of Class G of the SARRC. Coming into the final race of the 2023 season, no less than 3 crews were still in with the chance to claim the Class G title. Winning a title is a tough ask and requires a very specific strategy, depending on each driver's situation. But mostly it means going as fast as possible, but avoiding too much risk at the same time. Jeff Win It in a Minute was the man leading the charge with a slender 9-point advantage over youngster Ian Mostert, with Glenn Taron a further 3 points back. 3 crews and just 1 available title. Some say that it was coincidence that the qualifying results perfectly reflected the championship standings, but few things in racing is ever a coincidence. It made perfect sense that the crew at the top of the championship points table also went on to draw a line in the sand by setting the fastest time over the 58-kilometer qualifying race. It took Minute all of 31 minutes and 3 seconds to complete the Pirelli qualifier. But as with the title fight, the gap was close. The Mosterts, with Ian doing driving duties and his father Vanner reading the notes, were second fastest, just 12 seconds adrift. The Motonetics Racing Can-Am beat their teammates Taron and Galvin by a further minute and 6 seconds. So the stage was set for an epic title fight on the final day of the championship. Let's hear from the man at the top of the standings.
That prologue was such fun. It was probably the best prologue I've ever done.
This was the confirmation of the standings following Minute's victory in the Class G qualifying race ahead of the Mosterts and Taron. Francois de Witt and Ewald van Rensburg rounded out the top 5. This was it, the day that would decide the outcome of the entire 2023 championship fight. And it would all come down to this, the final 340 kilometers of racing. As the men who set the pace during qualifying, it was up to Minnaert and Berg to open the road for the rest of the Class G warriors. The equation was easy. Everyone else had to try and win the race and hope for the best, while Minnaert had the luxury of controlling his own pace and managing his lead. Behind Minnaert, all hell broke loose when Ewald van Rensburg and Johan Skeppers were forced to throw in the towel and retire from the race, and shortly after the Mostert ran into trouble of their own that caused them to lose valuable minutes and drop them down the order. In the end, it was not meant to be for the youngster who had to settle for fourth. Tyrone and Galvin had to win the race to have any hope of the title, but this too wasn't to be as they crossed the flying finish with the third fastest time. So no title for them either. Francois Neil de Wit wanted to end their season on a high, and they did by claiming a fantastic second position here in the Waterberg. But the race, as with most of the season, belonged to a worthy winner in the form of Jeff Minnaert, with Rodney Mumblesberg reading the notes from inside the hydropower equipment Can-Am Maverick. Minnaert didn't need to win the battle to win the overall war, but did so regardless in yet another faultless performance. What a way to end the season. A 13-minute victory for Minnaert and Berg over the de Wits, with Tyrone and Galvin rounding out the top three and podium spots. And speaking of the podium, what a feeling to be able to spray the bubbly for the last time in 2023, something which Minnaert has done on a number of occasions this year.
You know, at 66, to actually finally achieve one it's emotional. It's beautiful.
And onto the big wheel and big engine special vehicle category we go. Class A of the special vehicle category has already been wrapped up by Tim Howes and Gary Campbell, who once again had to fight off the challenge from the Lesotho-based brothers Keith and Andrew Makanete. Behind them in Class P, Quinton Lessing and Noel Acton once again made the long journey all the way from East London to come and play in the African bush. But the race started badly for both Lessing and the Makanetes, who both failed to finish the qualifying race, leaving special vehicle champions Tim Howes and Gary Campbell as the only men standing in the category after Friday's proceedings. This Saturday would turn out to be quite different for the special vehicle competitors. Both the Lessing Class P car as well as the Macmobile of the Makanetes were back on the starting line, and this time it was Howes who was forced to retire from the final race of the season following a little mishap in Loop 1. Here's Navi Campbell with the story.
On one of the corners we ran it slightly wide into a fence, and the fence hooked up, got the car stuck, we had to get out, cut it all off.
Makanete was happy to pick up the slack and take Class A, while Lessing's long trip to the Waterberg was rewarded with the win in Class B. Let's hear from our Class A winners.
Reminded us a lot of mountain Lesotho, Sun City, it had everything. It was a proper off-road, I really enjoyed it.
And finally, these were some of the championship battles that occurred at the Waterberg 400, but the overall war was still to be decided. The South African Rally Raid Class T1 Plus is not only the premier class of South African off-road racing, but it also serves as the premier class in the entire world of rally raid racing. In fact, an exact same Hilux as the one driven here by Toyota Gazoo Racing South Africa's drivers have won the prestigious Dakar Rally 3 times in the last 4 years. So Toyota are clearly the favourites to add another SA championship to their tally of achievements this decade. But the 2023 season had other plans. TGRSA's Henk Ladekan was leading the title fight until 6 weeks ago. But the former SA champ and Dakar stage winner was forced to sit this one out following a shoulder injury on the round before, effectively removing himself from the title fight in the process. Ladekan's situation basically meant the following. A total of 3 different crews were all still in with the chance to claim the coveted 2023 title. Defending champs Janelle de Villiers and Dennis Murphy were still in the fight, but it was a long shot. TGRSA teammate Guy Bottrell, on the other hand, was only 17 points off the lead and stood a real chance. But the man controlling the top of the leaderboard was Ford's Gareth Woolridge, who had already earned 2 victories in 2023. This was the official point standing after 6 of the 7 rounds. Ford was in a favourable pole position to claim their first title in many years, with Bottrell 17 points adrift. Ladekan would not add any points this weekend, and de Villiers needed a miracle. So it was all building up to an epic battle between Woolridge and Bottrell, Ford versus Toyota. And this is what they had to say.
It's quite exciting, new terrain for the whole crew. Everyone's never been here before, so it's quite exciting.
We've got a fair lead. I think the pressure is on the Toyota guys more than us. We're just going to keep it clean. I don't think we need any heroics this weekend.
The battle lines were drawn and it was time to go racing for one last time in 2023. And while Bottrell and Woolridge had the title fight in mind, the rest of the Class T1 Plus field were all gunning for glory. The Dutch pairing of Dave Klaassen and Tessa Ruth set the 10th fastest time in their redline Revo. But they were around 20 seconds slower than another international pairing in the form of Spaniards Daniel Alonso and Alejandro Lopez, who debuted their new Ford Ranger. As they say in racing, anything can happen, and it usually does. NWM Castrol forwards Gareth Woolridge and Boyd Dre knew exactly what they had to do. But not long into qualifying, the Ranger picked up a puncture, which took around 2 minutes to change. The title hopefuls were relegated to 8th at the end of qualifying and were now facing an uphill battle. 7th fastest for the big man in the even bigger King Price Extreme CR6. Lance Strathui and Adrian Ritz were as entertaining as ever behind the wheel of the big two-wheel drive machine. The next two guys have made a name for themselves in the short space of time since joining the SARRC. The Team Hilux Rally Raid crew of brothers Fushy and Basis Brickno kept their Hilux on its wheels and set the 6th fastest time. TGRSA's Janelle de Villiers and Dennis Murphy would have been happy to help their teammates to fight for the title this weekend, but the Dakar legend had a tough quali and could only set the 5th fastest time, around 14 seconds slower than Gary Berthold and Henry Cohn. The wily old fox has shown some great pace in recent times, and it was good to see his name near the top of the standings once again. But only 3 more spots, the 3 top spots remained, and as per the rest of the season, this was once again a battle between the boys in blue and the red squad. NWM Castrol forwards Lance Woolridge and Kenny Gilbert put up a good fight, but had to settle for 3rd after the 58-kilometre qualifying race. Just a few seconds behind the TGRSA Hilux of youngster Sahoud Variawa and new French navigator Francois Cazelet, who set the 2nd fastest time. But the weekend started perfectly for Guy Bottrell and navigator Brett Cummings, who flew to a 30-second victory in the qualifier. Great start for the Italian. And there's the confirmation of Bottrell's 30-second lead over teammate Variawa and the Ford of Lance Woolridge. Berthold and de Villiers completed the top 5, with championship points leader Gareth Woolridge all the way down in 8th. We caught up with both Bottrell and Woolridge after qualifying.
We had a few moments, small little overshoots. I'm still getting used to Brett, but I think it's a good position to be in so far.
We were leading till the halfway mark and we got a puncture, unfortunately. So, yeah, we lost about 1.5 minutes, I think, or a little bit less.
Before we conclude the 2023 SARC, let's take an overall look at the proudly South African championship that is regarded as one of the, if not the best, in the world. As a result, there are several international crews who elect to take long flights each month to enjoy the South African sun, but also come and measure themselves against some of the world's best. Daniel Alonso is not related to Fernando as far as we could tell, but the Spaniard was enjoying his first outing in South Africa.
I'm very happy, enjoy, incredible animals. Wow, for me it's always new.
The Dutch pairing of Dave Klaassen and Tessa Ruth have been to South Africa on many occasions, and yet they keep coming back for more.
Awesome racing here, and it's a quite serious competition as well.
The bush, it's the wide fields, it's all different kind of stuff, and the mountains, so it's really sometimes really tough.
Adam Kaplan is an Aussie and was finding the going tough on his first visit.
So this has been a challenge, trying to throw this big car around. First time I've ever had a four-wheel drive too, so.
Unfortunately, tragedy struck and shocked the entire SARC community with the tragic passing of Piet Biertger. Piet was a key member of the Team Hilux Rally Raid squad and close to the Horn family of Malalan, where he spent many happy years. But he will be remembered for his passion and dedication in the designated service parks, where he will be sorely missed. Rest in peace, Piet. This was it, race day at the Waterberg 400 and the final day in the entire 2023 championship. But more importantly, the day that would see the crowning of a new champion. The top 10 qualifiers got to choose their starting positions for the final day, with de Villiers choosing to open the road, followed by teammate Bottrell. It was clear that strategy would come into play. The road is narrow in places and dusty, making it difficult to pass. So Gareth Woolridge had his work cut out as he was forced to start down in 8th place following the punctured tyre from the day before. So that's how the title contenders started the final day. But before we conclude the title fight, let's cast our attention to how the rest of the Class 2-1+ crews finished the Waterberg 400. Sadly for Spaniard Daniel Alonso, he would not finish his first South African race as he was forced to retire. There was a fantastic scrap between Farmers Meat Abattoir's teammates Loet Dupree and Junior Vardy, and Eugene Bierman and Marius Lombard in their pair of CR6 monsters. Dupree and Bierman both upgraded to this class during the course of the year and were both clearly enjoying the big wheel machines with their big engines and big power. In the end, Dupree got the better of his teammates by finishing around 4 minutes ahead of them. A top 10 finish in the South African Championship is quite an achievement, and that's exactly what Aussies Adam Kaplan and Navi Dale Moscat achieved when they drove their Redline Revo T1 Plus to 10th in class on the Waterberg 400 in their first African race encounter. We have a funny feeling the Aussies will be back for more in 2024. And what a gesture from Johan and Van der Horn, who missed the qualifying race the day before. The brothers from Malalan dug deep to tackle the route in honor of their friend Piet Bierka. For once, their race time was not important, but the brothers showed their mettle by reaching the end of the race in what would have been an emotional time inside the Team Hilux Rally Raid Hilux. The Dutch crew of Dave Klaassen and Tessa Ruth is improving with every outing, and an 8th place finish in very competitive company was once again proof of the progress made by the Redline Revo squad during 2023. And speaking of improvement, the Waterberg was only the second outing for the brand new Century Racing CR7 four-wheel drive machine of Brian Baragwanath and Leonard Kramer. The pair lost valuable time early on but showed great potential with the new car that will surely be a force to be reckoned with come the 2024 Dakar and local season. The Blickner brothers from Witbank have built a reputation as a wild duo that are spectacular to watch. But on this occasion they also demonstrated their raw speed and talent when they managed to keep the Team Hilux Rally Raid car on its wheels like they did here in the Waterberg. They are a force to be reckoned with. They were rewarded with a fine 6th place finish. 6th was almost 5th, was it not for the King Price Extreme CR6 of Lance Trethui and Adrian Roots, who beat the Blickners by a mere 15 seconds after 400 kilometers of racing. The big dog is a wily old fox that clearly still enjoys his time behind the wheel as he raced to a 5th place finish. We are now nearing the business end of not only the race but the entire championship. This race contained a number of stories. It had the stalwart Gary Berthold in the mix, but it also contained the title fight between Bottrell and Woolridge and the role that their respective teammates would play. De Villiers and Murphy elected to open the road and clear the way for teammates Bottrell and Cummings. But De Villiers encountered a closed gate and with the time lost pulled over to let Bottrell past. Shortly after, Bottrell made a wrong turn and handed the lead back to De Villiers in the process. But the Dakar legend played the team game and once again stopped to let Bottrell pass, losing more time in the process. Meanwhile, the Woolridges were doing exactly what they had to do, and that was to keep their noses clean and out of trouble, as the Fords stayed in touch with their Toyota rivals on the overall leaderboard. Meanwhile, Toyota young guns Saoud Varial and French Navi Francois Cazalet were doing a great job in supporting their teammates. But their Hilux encountered a problem with the brakes, causing their youngster to overshoot a corner. The Hilux ended in a ditch, and although both driver and navigator were shaken and stirred, they escaped the incident without serious injury. Back in the DSP, tensions were running high at the halfway mark.
And we'll see how it goes. All we can do is drive as fast as we can. That's what I've told the drivers.
Yeah, it's very close. It's a hell of a last race, especially in these conditions. It's really, really tough.
Yeah, well, obviously we don't want to count our chickens yet, but the boys are doing a great job on the first lap, having a nice clean run and making up some time.
It'd be nice if we can bring home the win on the final, but like I said yesterday, we don't need to, so we just need to be careful.
Just one more loop remained, the loop that would determine the outcome of the entire championship. And unfortunately for title hopeful Guy Bottrell, the loop was over just as it got started. The engineers discovered a technical problem that cost him around 7 minutes and a few positions, effectively putting an end to his title aspirations. Out on the route, teammate De Villiers was doing his best, but a puncture on the second loop also didn't help his cause, and the man from Stellenbosch was forced to settle for 4th. And through all of this, Rally Raid stalwart Gary Berthold and Henry Cohen kept their noses clean in a good run through the Waterberg bush. The old fox has done way more than 100 races in his long and successful career. And after being both fast and consistent, he can now add a podium finish of the Waterberg 400 to his list of achievements. With the Toyota Challenge fading towards the latter part of the race, it was all up to NWM Castrol Ford brothers Gareth and Lance to control the race, and with it the championship. You've heard the equations before of how Gareth only needed a good finish to be crowned champion, and a good finish is exactly what he got. It couldn't have been scripted any better for the Woolridges, with Gareth and Navi Boy Dreyer crossing the finish line to take an emphatic victory and claim the title of South African champions in the same process. What made it even more special is that brother Lance and Navi Kenny Gilbert crossed the finish line in a fine second position, the second time this season that Ford claimed a 1-2 after also achieving the same result at the desert race earlier this season. It was all over. Gareth Woolridge and Boyd Dreyer are the 2023 SA Rally Raid champions. Here's the final standings, with the name Woolridge occupying the top 2 steps, followed by Berthold. De Villiers just missed out on a podium, and Trothui rounded out the top 5. And this was it, the final spread of the winners bubbly from the podium, and what a moment for the entire Ford team, with Gareth Woolridge claiming his first ever driver's title.
Yeah, glad to be able to bring it home for the team. It means a hell of a lot. It's the first time for Ford to win a title in 17 years, so it's a big deal for everybody.
And that was that for the 2023 SA Rally Raid Championship. All the action was proudly brought to you by Ford, Pirelli and Toyota. We'll see you when the action returns in 2024 for the next installment in the SARRC.